Excellent. So I'm here to talk about the 5 consumer trends that are transforming the market research world, and kind of what I'm seeing in the consumer space as we are consumers in our everyday lives, and how those changes are then transforming what's happening in the market research world. So here's the first consumer trend that we're really seeing in our worlds today. We went. I don't know if those of you remember when we would go back to the library and we used the Dewey Decimal System to figure out where things were when we had a question. We'd go to pull out a little index card and figure out where the book was on the shelf. And so it would take days to figure out what we were looking for because we had to plan a trip to the library, etc. Whereas today, answers are on demand. With Siri, I use it all the time. Even now with Google Home, I use. And so what's happening in our consumer lives is that answers are on demand. And how that's really translating then to the world that we work in is that it's the same thing. People, our business partners especially, are expecting the same type of experience in the market research world. So when I started my career at Procter & Gamble, in 2005, even then we used full service research firms, and it would take us sometimes 6 weeks to 3 months to get research back and give our business partners answers. And today they no longer expect that, or actually they expect much faster. And so that's why you're seeing companies like a Qualtrics selling for 20 times revenue, because what the world is recognizing and what the market's recognizing is that consumers are expecting, and consumers meaning like the consumers of our information, so our business partners are expecting on-demand answers. And if we can't provide that to them as insights professionals, they're going to find it someplace else because our businesses are moving so much faster. So that's really the first trend that we're seeing from a consumer standpoint to translating into the market research world, is going from long time to find answers to very quick on demand. The next trend that we're seeing is that as consumers, we want bite size. So I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with a company called Rent the Runway, but they are wildly successful in the United States. What they are doing is they allow people, mostly women, who are users of their platform, to rent their closet. So instead of having full closets, we actually get to a point where we're just renting pieces of our closet. And that it translates into many other trends that are happening in our personal lives. But I thought this was a really good visualization of how we are really wanting bite-sized pieces. We don't want the full solution. And that's exactly what's happening in market research today. So we're going from the really long surveys. So again, back in 2005, when I started at Procter & Gamble, we were doing huge ANU studies and segmentation studies, and they would be really ridiculously long. Now we're starting to move much more towards this quick and accessible. There's a company called 1Q that we're starting to see pop up in many different places. And literally, you'll be in a meeting, you need to answer that question. You can send out the question to a sample. To Reg's point, it may not be actually a perfect sample, but it's good enough to the industry, or to our business partners rather, and they get an answer back instantly. So we're really seeing this trend going from long surveys that take a long time to very quick and accessible. The next trend that we're seeing in our consumer lives is that we don't really confess our emotions any longer as much in written text and in words. I remember when I was in 3rd grade, I had a pen pal. I loved my pen pal. As part of my 3rd grade, our class assignment, I loved writing letters to her. But now really we're expressing, instead of letters, now we're expressing it through images and through videos. And so this is having a huge impact on the insights world. And I think this is probably maybe one of the more obvious ones that's been a really hot topic, which is that as researchers, we need to be collecting data that doesn't always require a survey. Now, I definitely don't think that surveys will go away. I think there's some people that have taken that view. But I do think there's absolutely the need for surveys, especially in digging into the why things are happening. But definitely to understand what is happening in our world, so we have social media at our disposal, video analytics as well. Also, another great logo for this is Vox Pop Me next to Big Sofa, doing similar things in the video analytics space. And so that is a huge trend that is not only happening in our consumer world, but also happening in the market research world, and really something we should be keeping an eye on as insights professionals. The next trend is something that I feel very passionate about, and is very interesting to think about. So 20 years ago, there were a lot of things that we couldn't do on a computer unless we knew how to code. And what companies like Apple and Samsung have done with their products has enabled the creation of a beautiful and simple user interface that requires no new skills to be able to operate that piece of machinery or that computer. And for example, you can give a 2-year-old an iPad, which is essentially, an iPad is really a computer in a sense. And that 2-year-old knows what they're doing. They know how to move things into the trash. They know how to open up the camera application and take a picture. And those types of functionalities, that would have taken a skill set, a developer to actually do about 20 years ago. And really, the way that that's come to life is through simple and beautiful user interfaces. So something to think about for the future, not just inside market research, but everywhere else is, what will require developers to code things. Now, you and I, people who don't know how to code, can do things. 2-year-olds can do things. And so that's where also what I think is a huge impact in the market research world is that we don't need to rely on programmers and people who are very skilled in the data set to get answers. And so I think the Tableau was a huge step in this direction for organizations. So it would have taken a UX UI designer, it would have taken someone who knows data sets very well to create a beautiful Tableau dashboard. And now what Tableau has done is enabled someone who actually is proficient in just data sets to create beautiful dashboards and share that out to the organization. And what we're doing at Knowledge Hound and is that we are actually kind of taking that next step further, which is, okay, how do we take this consumer trend of now like the iPad is the extreme, how do we apply that to a Tableau-like experience? Could there be a world in which you don't even know how to open the data file? It doesn't matter you have Knowledge Hound. It doesn't matter that you don't know how to cross tab or filter something because you have Knowledge Hound. And that's really where we're thinking about the future and stretching this thinking around the future. And that's not just about visualizations. It's also, we're seeing this in consumer survey, creating consumer surveys. Zappy Store is doing a brilliant job at this, is in enabling anyone to be able to create a survey. So something that's absolutely coming into our world in many different avenues. And then the last trend that we're seeing inside of our consumer world is we're going from a world of static to dynamic. So when I ever wanted to watch a movie before in the Blockbuster days, I would go to Blockbuster. I would have to pick out the one movie that I wanted to watch that night, take the DVD home, watch it. Maybe I think you could rent it for like 2 days, or maybe sometimes there's a one-night rental, and then I would return it. Now I have Netflix. I can choose when I want to watch something and what I want to watch. So it's going from this very static consumer experience to a dynamic product and service. And that's really, really amazing in how that's coming to life in our personal lives. How is that coming to life in the market research world? Well, we're starting to see this trend in how we present information. So if you think about it, PowerPoint is a static presentation. It is here's your deliverable. It's a point in time. You're kind of stuck with what's inside that PowerPoint presentation. And something that we've done at Knowledge Hound is think through how can you actually create more of a dynamic experience, more of that Netflix type experience. So we've created at Knowledge Hound a way that you can interact with data regardless if it's, in what type of presentation format. So how can you actually, when you see a chart, actually interact with it? And that's really where our market research world is going. So as a supplier, we need to push ourselves into what's more of a dynamic deliverable that I can give to my client, rather that static point in time, because your data is dynamic. It is something that people want to interact with. And then as a brand, same thing for how we think about how do we deliver insights to our internal clients. Again, they don't have necessarily a point in time business question all the time. They want something that's more dynamic. And so we're starting to see that shift inside of the market research world, whether it's through Knowledge Hound, our platform, or Adapracy, who's doing custom dashboarding, whatever that might be, we're starting to see that shift. And I anticipate that to become further and further stretched as we go here. So just in summary, the 5 new realities of the market research world is that survey collection is moving towards DIY. I think that's we want this point in time, very fast, want it now, and there's pros and cons to that, and we need to live with that. But our market and our world is demanding that. The second thing is we're seeing this shift towards observed data versus claimed. Now, government is definitely trying to regulate this as to how much we can understand on this, which I'm not saying, that's a bad thing, just saying that that's something that could hinder how much we can get from a market research perspective on the observed data versus claimed. But it's something we all need to be growing our skills in. The next thing is, basic analytic capabilities will not be required to do advanced work. User interfaces on top of with advanced technologies will enable those of us who don't have the deep coding skills to create insights and understand them. And then last, all market research reports will become dynamic dashboards and be automated. Like, there will be a time in which we will not have PowerPoint any longer. So we need to be thinking about what is that for us, no matter what seat we sit in. So that is kind of my kind of core trends that I'm seeing in our consumer lives translating to market research. And I think they'll just continue to grow and grow and become stronger inside the market research world that we live in.